Assalamualaikum and good evening to Dr. Nabila and my fellow friends. Today, my group will be present about the genes and personality. So, my name is Nur Intan Fatihah binti Muhammad Badri and I will be covering about the genome, controversy about the genes and personality, goals of behavioral genetics, and a bit about heritability. So what is genome? Genome actually refers to the complete set of genes and organism processes which contain between 20,000 to 25,000 genes that are located at the 23 pairs of chromosomes. It means that it's actually the nucleic acid sequences of human which encoded as DNA. Do you remember about the GACT sequences on the DNA? So when each of the 23 chromosomes has complete sequences, it's called the genome. Hence, there is one project about the genome which called the Human Genome Project. It was a multi-billion dollar research endeavor dedicated to sequencing the entire human genome. The project was coordinated by National Institute of Health and the US Department of Energy. The Human Genome Project formally began in 1980 and was completed in 2003, 2 years ahead of its original schedule. This research allowed researchers to begin to understand the blueprint for building a person. Blueprints mean which part of the genes form a particular behavior or personality. However, they are still figuring out what role the genes play in the body, mind, and behavior. So there are two findings that are especially noteworthy, which means it was significant and interesting for you to know. The first one is about the number of genes human possesses are similar to the number of genes estimated for mice and worms. But human genes get encoded into proteins turn out to be far more variable. This means that humans have more variety of genes like genes for eye color, skin color, hair color, and others. For the second one, you will find out that it is incredible because there are only 2% of protein coding genes that making up the human genome. The other 98% of the DNA can be called as genetic junk because scientists believe that those parts were functionless. However, that genetic junk are not fully useless after researchers did their finding. They found that some of the junk has an impact to human which is persons physical size to personality. So these are some of the use of genetic junk or junk DNA. First one is regulating how DNA is transcribed and translated into proteins. The second one is acts like a volume node for gene expression, ultimately influencing the development of breast and prostate cancer. Hence, researchers still believe that most of the genetic junk are useless in their existence. Furthermore, most of the genes in the human genome are the same for each individual on the planet. For example, everyone has two legs, two eyes, 32 teeth, and others. Moreover, some of the genes are still different for different persons. For example, even everyone has two eyes, but some people will have different colors of eyes, like blue, brown, and even violet eyes. Move to the next topic, which about the controversy about genes and personality. This is because researchers attempt to determine the degree to which individual differences in personality are caused by the genetic and environmental differences. For example, is about the baby's designer case. This is where parents can select genes from a genetic checklist of the characteristics they would like to have in their children. It's like you are choosing an outfit from your wardrobe to make you look the most outstanding person in a particular event. So it is controversial because they suggest that genetic differences among individuals are responsible for shaping the core features of human personality rather than differences in parental socialization or personal experiences, meaning that they actually think the individual differences or uniqueness only depends on that particular genetics or genes and cannot be affected by other factors. So you need to know two reasons of this controversy. The first one is about ideological concern. People worry that the findings about behavioral genetics will be used to support particular political agendas. For example, if people find out a person with a strong desire to control the politics, some political party will take an advance on that person instead to have the political power. So if scientists successfully trace a behavior pattern or personality trait to a genetic component, some people worry that it might lead to the worst thing that might happen. It's like, for example, a war between the people when there is more violent personality take place in the human population. The second one is about eugenic consent. Eugenics means about the population about the reproduction of human population. This is like designing the future of the human species by fostering the reproduction of persons with certain traits and reduce the humankind without that particular trait. It's like people with only good traits will survive and people without it will be eliminated. So people concerned that this study might be used to support programs intended to prevent some individuals reproducing because this could make that there is no more variety on human population. Moreover, modern psychologists have their own thought that they are typically extremely careful in the attempt to educate others about the use and potential misuse of the findings. The psychologists maintain that genetic findings need not lead to the evil consequences, which means they already bear in their mind on which part to be really exposed to the people and which part are not. Modern psychology also said that findings about personality characteristics has genetic component does not mean that the environment is powerless to modify characteristics on a person. Moving to another topic which is about the goals of behavioral genetics. The first goal you need to know is to determine the percentage of an individual differences that can be attributed to genetic differences and the percentage due to environmental differences. For example, that 90% individual differences in height due to genetic differences, 10% due to the environment. It also can be 10% due to genetics and 90% due to environment. It's like when you are from a family that are mostly tall and indeed you are tall, granted we can say it because of the genetic mostly. But if you have from a family with an average height and you are living obesity and that makes you become tall, it can be said that it was due to the environment mostly. The second one is to determine the way in which genes and environment interact and correlate to each other. For example, if your parents have an average color skin but you have fairer skin because you are born somewhere overseas, they want to know which part that caused the situation. Lastly, the goal is also figuring out precisely where is environment effects are taking place. For example, like parental socialization practices, peer influences, and others. For example, in parental socialization practices, if you have a child with a temper tantrum, that situation can be altered if parents are soft-spoken, be patient, and give some control for certain things to the child. So that child might change and become a better person when they become an adult. For peer influences, if the child have good friends, mostly they will study together, be a good person, and trigger the child to be a better person for their parents. And if the child be friend with a bad person, turn out that child might be a bad person also when they turn to be adults. Next is about heritability. What is actually heritability? Heritability is the proportion of phenotypic variance that is attributable to genotypic variance. Phenotypic variance means observing individual differences like height, weight, or personality, and the genotypic variance meaning that individual differences in the total collection of genes possessed by each person. For example, like eyes color, hair color, or even size of an individual. However, there are some misconceptions about heritability. You need to know these three misconceptions about heritability. The first one is heritability cannot be applied to a single person or individual because heritability refers only to differences in a sample or population. The second one is heritability is not constant because if environment change, the heritability will change. This is like the example when you grow up in Malaysia, but when you have a child which was born in somewhere overseas, that child have a fairer skin. The third one is heritability is not precise statistics because heritability are typically computed using correlation which themselves fluctuate sample to sample. The last part of my presentation about the nature debate, and I'm sure that you already heard about it most of the time. So nature is most likely the genetics and nature is like the environment. So this part where the argument about whether genes or environment are more important determinant of personality. For your information, there is clarification clearly distinguish between two analyses. For the first one is on level of individual. In this level, there is no nature debate. Because of what? Because every individual has unique genes which requires environments during one's life to produce recognizable, which means to be identified as one person. The second one is on level of population. In this level, it can be disentangled or separated the influences of genes and environments. It is because this can be partitioned or divided to the differences into two sources, which are differences in genes and differences in environment. So that's all for me and my teammates will continue. Thank you.
Hello and good evening to Dr. Nabila and my fellow friends. My name is Ashatu Farhani binti Ramzi. So today I'm going to present about the behavioral genetic method. There is 5 methods altogether and I'm going to explain it one by one. The first method is selective breeding. Selective breeding occurs while identifying the dog that possess the desired characteristics and having them mate only with other dogs that also possess the characteristics. Artificial selection is a process that takes place only if the desired characteristics are under the influence of heredity, as occurs when dogs are bred for certain qualities. For the example, some dogs such as pit bull are on average more aggressive than the most of the dogs. Labrador, on average very sociable and agreeable. Chesapeake Bay Retriever have a strong desire to please their owners by retrieving objects. Characteristics that have been established in these animals through selective breeding is aggressiveness, agreeableness, and desires to please. So the dog breeders have been successful precisely because of many of the qualities they wish specific dogs breed to have a moderately to highly heritable. Some of these heritable qualities are physical traits, characteristics that we actually see, such as size, ear length, and wrinkled skin and coat of hair. This is Labrador Retriever and Chesapeake Bay Retriever, which is they both have webbed feet, which make them strong swimmers. So here, if heritability for personality traits in dog breed literally zero, then attempt to breed dogs selectively for such trait will be doomed to fail. If heritability of this personality trait is high, then selective breeding will be highly successful and will occur rapidly. But we do not do selective breeding on people for obvious ethical reasons. Next is family studies. Family studies correlated the degree of the genetic relatedness among the family members and the degree of the personality similarity, such as each parent share 50% of his or her genes with each of the children. Siblings share 50% of their genes on average. Grandparents and grandchildren share 25% of their genes, as do uncles and aunts with their nieces and nephews. And the first cousin share only 12.5 of the genes. If personality characteristic is highly heritable, then family members with greater genetic relatedness should be more similar to each other than a family members with less genetic relatedness. If a personality characteristic is not at all heritable, then even family members who are closely related genetically should not be any more similar to each other than family members who are genetically related to each other. For example, certain brother and sister may be similar on shyness, not because they share genes, but because of the shared parents, like parents not allowing them from hang out with their friends strictly. And another example is if our parents is extrovert person, we may be an extrovert person too. If our grandparents are extrovert, we may not be extrovert person as we only share 25% of the genes. Family members who share the same genes typically share the same environment. Like two members of the family might be similar to each other not because a given personality characteristic is heritable, but rather because of a shared environment. Next is twin studies. Twin studies estimate heritability by gauging whether identical twins who share 100% of their genes are more similar to each other than a fraternal twins who share only 50% of their genes. If fraternal twins are just similar to each other as identical twins are in terms of particular personality characteristics, then we can infer that characteristic under consideration is not heritable. The greater genetic similarity of identical twins is not causing them to be more similar in personality. If identical twins are substantially more similar to each other than a fraternal twin on given characteristics, then this provides evidence that is compatible with heritability interpretation. The famous twin studies is the James twin. The James twin is identical twin given up for adoption at birth. They were adopted into different families that they unaware that they had a twin. When they first meet for the first time, these men share many behavioral habits such as having favorite TV shows, using same brand of toothpaste, and owning Jack Russell Terrier dog. They also share many personality traits like highly conscientiousness and emotionally stable. This coincidence seems to happen with unusual regularity in course of studying twins. Nearly all individuals come from a single fertilized egg, and humans typically give birth to a single child of a time, occasionally twins occurring only once in 83 births. This is how to differentiate between identical twin and fraternal twin. Identical twin is a monozygotic twin. which come from a single fertilized egg for zygote which divided into two at some point during gestation, while the fraternal twin is a dizygotic twin come from two eggs that were separately fertilized. Identical twins literally share 100% of the genes, while the fraternal only share 50% of the genes. Identical twins always same sex because they're genetically identical, while the fraternal twin can be same sex or opposite. Of all twins born, 1/3 are identical and 2/3 are fraternal. Studies shown that identical twins are more similar than fraternal twins in dominance, height, and the ridge count on their fingertips, suggesting that heritability plays a causal role in influencing these individual difference, such as the characteristic for dominance for identical is 0.57 and the fraternal is 0.12. And the characteristic for the high for identical is 0.93 and the fraternal is 4. There are several formulas for calculating heritability from twin data, each with its own problem and limitation. Double the difference between the MZ correlation and DZ correlation was shown below. From the equation shown, RMZ is a correlation coefficient computed between pairs of monozygotic twins, and RDZ means correlation between dizygotic twins. For example, heritability of high equals to 2 in bracket 0.93 minus 0.48 equals to 0.90. According to this formula, high is 90% heritable and 10% is environmental. We must note that the importance of assumption of twin method, which is equal environment assumption. That means the environment experienced by identical twins are no more similar to each other than environments experienced by fraternal twins. For example, if they are more similar to each other, then the greater similarity of the identical twin could be due to the fact they experience more similar environment rather than the fact they have more genes in common. Behavioral geneticists worried about the validity of equal environment assumption because there are one approach to examine twins who are having misdiagnosed as identical or fraternal. The next method is the adoption studies. Adoption studies is the one of the most powerful behavioral genetic methods available. Adoption studies examine the correlation between adopted children and their adoptive parents, with whom they share no genes. If one finds a positive correlation between adopted children and their adoptive parents, then this provides a strong evidence for environmental influence on the personality traits in question. And adoption studies examine the correlation between adopted children and their genetic parents, which had no influence on children's environment. If it is zero correlation between adopted children and their genetic parents, again, this is strong evidence for a lack of heritable influence on the personality traits in question. If positive correlation between parents and their adopted away children with whom they had no contact, then this provides evidence for heritability. The last method is twins reared apart. Behavioral genetic design is one of the that combines the strength of twin and adoption studies at the same time. Although it is true that identical twins do tend to dress more alike than fraternal, spend more time together and have friends in common, there's no evidence that environmental similarities cause them more similar in personality. The correlation between identical twins reared apart can be interpreted directly as an index of heritability. If identical twins reared apart show correlation of 0.65 for particular personality characteristic, then that means that 65% of the individual difference are heritable. Fortunately, identical twins are exceedingly rare. The important potential problem of behavioral genetic method is assumption of the representativeness and selective placement. Assumption of the representativeness is adoption studies assume that adopted children, their birth parents, and their adoptive parents are representative of general population. For example, these studies assume that a couple who adopt children are not only different from a couple who do not adopt children. Fortunately, the assumption of representativeness can be tested directly. Assumption of representativeness holds for cognitive abilities, personality, education level, and even socioeconomic status. For the selective placement, if adopted children are placed with adoptive parents who are similar to their birth parents, then this may inflate the correlation between the adopted children and their adoptive parents. These are the advantage and limitation of the method. For the selective breeding studies, the advantage can infer heritability if selective breeding works, and the limitation are unethical to conduct on humans. For the family studies, the advantage is provide heritability estimate, while the limitation is violate equal environment assumption. For the twin studies, give the advantage for providing both heritability and environmentality estimate, while the limitation is sometimes violate equals environment assumption. And the last one for the adoption studies, the advantage is provide both heritability and environmentality estimate, which get around the problem of equal environment assumption. And the limitation for the adoption studies is adopted kid might not be representative of population because of the problem of the selective placement. That's all. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and very good evening to my lecturer, Dr. Nabila and my fellow friends. My name is Masha Gadamati Dali. Today I will present about the major findings from behavioral genetic research. There are four major findings which are personality traits, attitudes and preference, drinking and smoking, and lastly marriage and satisfaction with life. First one is personality traits. In personality trait, there are twin research which are twin study, adoption study, and individual differences in activity level. The most common studied personality traits is extraversion and neuroticism. The first one is twin study. In twin study, Anderson reviewed the literature on more than 25,000 pair of twins and found substantial heritability for both twins. Results show large correlation finding for extraversion in identical twins, which is 0.51, and small correlation finding in fraternal twins, which is 0.21. These two correlations gives a heritability of 0.60, which is large correlation between them. For neuroticism, the findings were similar. There was a large correlation in identical twins, which is 0.50, and small correlation in fraternal twin, which is only 0.23 correlation. These two correlations yield heritability of 0.54 correlations. This twin study suggesting extraversion and neuroticism are traits that are half due to genetics. Next is adoption study. The findings from the adoption study show lower heritabilities. For example, Pedersen found heritability estimate based on comparison of adoptees and their biological parents of about 40% for extraversion, and about 50% for neuroticism. This study show zero correlation between adoptive parents and adopted children because personality traits can be shaped only by genetic, not the environment. Lastly is individual differences in activity level. Individual differences in activity level is measured by using actometer. Activity level show a heritability of 0.04, which is moderate correlation, suggesting moderate proportion of individual differences in motor energy due to genetic differences. Second major finding is attitude and preference. In Minnesota, twin study show a traditionalism as evidenced by attitude favoring conservative value over modern values, and it adding a large heritability of 0.59. Conservative here means refuse to change or innovation and holding traditional values such as dating women should stay at home and doing house chores while the men go to work. In a longitudinal study of 654 adopted and non-adopted children from Colorado Adoption Projects reveal significant genetic influence on conservative attitudes. Some questions are being asking whether participants agree or disagree with specific words or phrases such as death penalty, gay rights, censorships, and Republicans. Gene also influenced the occupational preference. In a study of 435 adopted and 10,808 genetic offspring residing in Canada and United States. The participants respond to 14 different aspects of prospective jobs using a scale ranging from 1 or not at all appearing to 100 extremely appearing. The 40 job aspects were high income, competition, British, invited by other, risk-taking, element or danger, controlling others, fear by others, little supervision, independence, job security, part of team, clear responsibilities, and help others. This occupational preference were then correlated with 7 measures of parental social status, mothers and fathers' educational levels, and occupational status and income. The results show 70% correlation was statistically significant to the genetic children, while 3% for adopted children. This shows genetic influence in the occupational preference. Next major findings is drinking and smoking. Drinking and smoking are often regarded as behavioral manifestation of personality disposition such as sensation seeking, extraversion, and neuroticism. In a study, a monozygote twin who smoked was roughly 16 times more than a monozygote twin who did not smoke to have a twin who smoked. This means if both of them smoke, they will become heavy smoker compared to a twin who only one of them who that smoke. Study of alcohol drinking show moderate heritability for both sexes, which are ranging from 0.36 to 0.56. Heritability studies of alcoholism as opposed to everyday drinking habits show even stronger heritabilities. The results show heritabilities of 0.50 or greater. In one study, the heritability of alcoholism were 96% in women and 71% in men. Lastly is marriage and satisfactions with life. Genes can even influence the tendency to marry or stay single in someone's life. The heritability for tendency to marry is 98%. The men who got married score higher on social influence and achievement rates linked with upwards mobility, success in careers, and financial success compared to their single peers. Individual differences in women marital satisfactions are roughly about 50% heritable. The marital satisfaction for both men and women depends on moderately heritable personality, disposition of wife, which are dispositional optimists, warmth, low aggressiveness, accounted for both their own marital satisfactions and their husband marital satisfactions. These results suggest that genes play a role in the quality of marriage and even who get divorced versus staying married. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Siti Aisyah Mithisri. I will present about the shared versus non-shared environmental influences result. So shared environmental is an environmental effect shared by all family members. So example, books at home, laptop, schools. So basically at home, we have books, laptop, computer, right? So we share that environment with all family members. So it called shared environmental. Also the shared environmental, we can call as same environment. Okay. Non-shared environmental is an environmental effects that are unique to individual and not shared by all family members. Example, friends, experiences, knowledge. Okay, so the all individual have different knowledge and different experiences in their life, right? So it called non-shared environment. Non-shared also we can call as a different environment. Okay. A large body of behavioral genetics research suggests that the child's unique experiences in the world rather than the shared environment contribute to almost all environmental influence on adolescent and adult personality. So in the short, it means that the non-shared environment mostly influence on adolescent and adult personality rather than the shared environment. This is because they want to expose to the new environment or different environment such as schools, office, new friends, home, management. So basically, they will develop their personality based on the environment they choose. Okay. Shared environments have little influence on personality, even matter the parenting also. So the parenting may have little to do with how personality develops, unless parents are treating their children differently. So it means that if the parents treat their children in the same way, same environment, such as only the books at home, so their children will develop the same personality. Their growth is step. Okay, if the parents treat their children differently based on their heredity and provide the needed, so basically their personality will develop in differently. Okay. Genes and environment is divided into two, which is genotype-environment interaction and genotype-environment correlation. Genotype-environment interaction is differential response of individuals with different genotypes to the same environments. So the keyword is different response. different genotypes in the same environments. So example, we consider introverts and extroverts who have somewhat different genotypes. Introverts tend to perform well on cognitive tasks when there is a little stimulation in the room, but they do poorly when there are distractions, such as music blasting or people walking around. Extroverts make a lot of errors in these cognitive tasks when there is a little stimulation, when the task they are working in is boring or monotonous. Monotonous is mean unchanged. Okay, so we can see that they have two different genotypes, which is introvert and extrovert, and they are respond in a different way in the same environment. So environment is stimulation in the room with cognitive tasks. Okay. Genotype-environment correlation is the differential exposure of individuals with different genotypes to the different environment. So the keyword is different in the exposure, different genotypes, and in different environments. So example, a child who has a genotype for high verbal ability. The parents provide lots of books to read, engage in intellectual discussions, give word games, and crossword puzzles. The parents who have a child with less verbal ability is less inclined to provide this stimulation. Okay, so we can see that they have two different children with a different genotype. First child with have a have with high verbal ability, and the environment is the parent provide a lot of books, engage in intellectual discussion, so they're more to the stimulation. But another child who have less verbal ability, they is less inclined to the stimulation. They more to be quiet, more observing. Okay. Plowman, DeVries, and Loughlin, 1997, described three very different kinds of genotype-environment correlation, which are passive, reactive, and active. Okay. Passive genotype-environment correlation is occur when parents provide both genes and environment to child, yet the children do nothing to obtain the environment. Example, the parents who are verbally inclined pass on genes to their child that make them verbally inclined. However, because the parents are highly verbal, they buy a lot of books. There is a correlation between the child's verbal ability and number of books in their home. This means that the high child's verbal ability, the higher the number of books in the home. But it is passive in the sense that the child has done nothing to cause the books there. It means that the children is not seeking anything out to change the environment. So I give another one example. Okay, a child who has a high IQ, the environment is going to foster their high IQ by give them to be the creative, do the problem solving, do or they're not seeking anything out to change the environment. Okay. Reactive genotype-environment correlation is occur when parents respond to children differently depending on the child's genotype. Example, cuddlers versus non-cuddlers. So, some babies love to touch. They giggle, smile, laugh, and show great pleasure when they are handled. Other babies are more aloof and simply do not like to be touched very much. So we can imagine a mother starts out touching and hugging is offered to children a lot. One child loves it and others hates it. Okay, so over the course of several months, the mother reacts by continuing to hug the cuddler, but cuts down on hugging the non-cuddler. So we can see that the parents respond to their children differently depends on their children's hereditary disposition. Active genotype-environment correlation is occur when a person with particular genotype creates or seeks out a particular environment. So example, high sensation seekers more expose themselves to risky environment such as skydiving and motorcycle jumping. Another example is highly intellectual individuals are likely to attend lectures, read books, and engage others in verbal discussion. Okay, they have two different particular genotypes, which are high attention seekers and highly intellectual individuals. So high sensation seekers just create their particular environment with expose themselves to risky environment. But highly intellectual individuals then create the particular environment by attend the lecture, read books, and engage others in verbal discussions. So this active creation and selection of environment has called niche picking. Again, what is niche picking? Niche picking is mean that the people choose the environment that complement their heredity. It means that I give an example, easy example. Extrovert person, okay, they choose the environment by going to the party, being more social, going outside with the friends, talkative. Okay, that's me. It's speaking. Okay, so highly fact that we are not passive recipients of our environment. We mold, we create and select the environments we subsequently inhabit, and some of these actions are correlated with our genotype. Okay, this genotype environment correlation can be positive or negative. Example, adolescents who have personalities marked by positive emotionality, example, optimistic, they tend to evoke high levels of helpful and affirmative feedback from their parents, so that genotypes for positive emotionality are positively correlated with environments of high parental feedback. Conversely, parents of highly active children may try to get them to sit still and calm down, and parents of less active children may try to get them to back up and be more lively, in which case there is a negative genetic environment correlation because the parent's behavior opposes the children's traits. So the key point is environments can go against a person's genotype, resulting in a negative genotype-environment correlation, or they can facilitate the person's genotype, creating a positive genotype-environment correlation. Okay, okay, that's only for me. Thank you for watching.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Hazib Muhammad Hazib bin Nasruddin from Group 3. Okay, today I will present about the molecular genetic. What is a molecular genetic? Molecular genetic that technique that designed to identify the specific gene associated with the personality traits. Okay, is to identify whether individual with particular gene have higher or lower score on trait than individual without gene. So means that it can detect with the person that have or not have genes that have with a particular gene have higher or lower score. After that, the RD4 is gene that located on the short arm of chromosome 11 and codes for the dopamine receptor. Its function is to respond the presence of other dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter. Association between the RD4 gene and personality trait has involved novelty seeking. Novelty seeking means like seek a new risk experience, more to like a risky experience. Okay, next, by the novelty seeking, to seek out the new experiences, especially those considered risky by Zuckerman and Kohman 2000. Example, the experience is drug, risky sexual experiences, gambling, and high-speed driving. Researchers have found an association between particular gene and personality-related traits, but failed to replicate this association due to size of association is small. If they achieve to replicate, but it will broke the association due to the size of association. Okay, next. For behavioral genetic science and politics and value, finding that some personality traits are heritable seem to violate prevailing environmentalist view that personality is determined by socialization, such as parenting style. Some personality trait that means like neuroticism. Okay. After that, people also worried about political and ideological misuse of behavioral genetic finding. Means that Hitler comment when he used the ideological and political to his people to kill the Jewish people. Although science clearly can be biased by their value, the virtue of the scientific method is that it is self-correcting. The methods are public, so other scientists can check the findings, discover errors in procedure, and can over time correct any bias that creep in. Okay, hi everyone. Today I will present about the fun fact. Okay, imagine that red and blue will be mixed and will become to make the purple. Now imagine try to separate the red and blue again by hand. It will be impossible due to large number of genes each play a small role in determine our personality. This in turn make it difficult to determine how the genes interact with each other or with other genes. Okay, next. Imagine a dump truck full of sand. If you looking for 300 specific grain of sand, you unsure exactly what the different grains of sand will look like. But you take out your magnifying glass and start hunting anyway. This is a bit like trying to find the genes that influence our personality traits. Okay, next. For summary and evaluation, there are four major behavioral genetic methods: selective breeding studies, family studies, twin studies, and adoption studies. Selective breeding study cannot ethically conduct on humans. Family studies are problematic due to genetic and environmental factors. After that, twin studies have potential problems like violation and assumption of representativeness. Adoption studies also have potential problems such as non-random replacement of adopted away children. Much of environmental influence is due to non-shared variable, genotype-environment interaction and correlation, as well as the new field of molecular behavior genetic analysis. Molecular genetics represent the most recent development in the realm of personality. Okay, that's all. Thank you.